here we are.
Hey, good evening.
Ciao. Hello.
Hi Eliomaria, hi Paolo, and hi David, Massimo, and Juergen.
Hello, everybody.
Good evening.
And a good evening also to all of our attendees. So thank you very much for being together tonight. It's a pleasure to be with you for this initiative, the COVID exit, ways through and out of the pandemic. First of all, I would like to greet and say thank you together with our managing directors, David and Massimo, respectively from Glasford, Germany and Glasford, Italy. And a special thank you is for our guests and speakers that I would like to briefly introduce, but then please feel free to add whatever you want. Pierpaolo Antonioli is the CEO of Punch Torino, previously CEO of GM Global Propulsion System, always in Turin. We could say he's an automotive guy and one of the best I have ever met.
Thank you.
Paolo has also some institutional positions in the world of entrepreneurial associations, mainly focused on strategies for attracting foreign investments. He has a technical background in mechatronic engineer, and he directly participated in the development of the first diesel common rail injection system. The second special guest tonight is Juergen Luderer. He's the Sales and Product Management Director of Vinnolit, the global leading producer of specialty PVC. With an economical background, Juergen has developed his proficient career path with increasing responsibilities, moving through different functions from logistics to controlling to corporate development, then to sales. And finally, Eliomaria Narducci, a young, very talented manager with a strong international background. Currently, he is the Secretary General of ITKAM, the Italian Chamber of Commerce for Germany, and he's been dealing with cross-border businesses at the EMEA level, with particular focus on German-Italian economic cooperation. Well, before giving the floor to our speakers, I really would like to share with you the main purpose of the webinar. You know, when the pandemic came here in Italy, then in Germany, we at Glasford were as usual in our offices in Milan and Munich, together with our colleagues, meeting candidates, and being at our client side in the companies. Working for our mission, that is to contribute to an evolved enterprise system, sharing with our main stakeholders organizational and industries knowledge and experience. This is what we have done from the beginning of our history, and for sure, as we firmly are convinced, thinking about how to deal with this unexpected storm, this is what we want to do, we want to keep doing. But how to deal with such a sudden change? We rapidly rethought our strategies in the light of the new world, our people, our processes, our strategies and investments. All of you know that a great athlete don't hesitate in front of a steep road, but looks for new resources within himself. Well, actually, I cannot say if we in Glasford are great athletes yet, but for sure we have been daily training to become. Skype, Zoom, and other platforms are new tools in order to continue and pursuing our mission. And this is the reason why we are here tonight with you, trying to face together new challenges, maybe with different tools, but with the same purpose than ever. I have already taken any of your time, so I give the floor to David Buckerberg, our Managing Director of Glasford, Deutschland, and one of the most incredible Bayern Munich fan.
Yes, thank you very much. Good evening, all attendees. Thank you very much to the Italian team, to Stefania and Emanuela for setting this interesting webinar up, and of course, thanks to all the speakers. Greetings from Germany. As everywhere in the world, we are facing crazy times, challenging times. Bavaria is one of the most heaviest affected regions in Germany, and we really have big challenges to face. For example, I think since World War II, there will be the first time no Oktoberfest in Munich this year. Which is unbelievable for people living here. At least you said it, Bayern Munich started to play again. That really gives us hope that times will get better. I just want to talk a little bit about the situation in Germany. I don't want to bore you with numbers and figures. I guess you all are aware that Germany is very much affected by Corona. We have many infected people. On the one hand, on the other hand, a quite low mortality, thanks God. This is due to a quite solid and stable health system here in Germany, and the authorities are doing a lot of testing, so the situation seems to be quite under control, and government is steadily lowering the lockdown, which is good, but of course it's not done yet. If we look at the economy, the German economy, of course the crisis has a very strong impact on the German GDP. We're stepping into a crisis, or maybe we're already in the crisis. Same situation as many other countries. We have a strong support programs from the government, so there's a tremendous effort to really help companies and employers to go through the crisis. We have installed many very effective relevant instruments, such as the Kurzarbeit, which is a flexible instrument that helps employers to save jobs on the one hand and to reduce working costs on the other hand. So this is done very, very frequently. If we look at our executive search business, which is maybe some kind of an indicator of the situation of the economy, we can say that the executive search mandates are actually quite stable. Of course, we do not get too many new assignments, but very low as the running assignments have been stopped. We see that companies really stay focused and really continue to work on different positions and to look for the right people also in crisis times. I think this is also promising and a good sign. We're very close with our existing clients today and stay in very close contact and support each other where we can. Today we want to talk about our clients coming from different industries and different businesses, and want to understand what is their strategy to cope with the crisis. If I talk to my clients, I can see that we have really very different situation in the different industries. There are companies and clients who are very heavily affected by the crisis. For example, all the exporting mechanical engineering business, or especially the automotive business here in Germany, which is by far the most important industry that we have. It's the motor of the German industry. Maybe it's even the motor of the European industry. And when automotive industry suffers, Germany suffers, and usually, unfortunately, also Europe suffers. This is the one thing, though. There's a big crisis mode in automotive industry, especially among the OEMs. But on the other hand, this automotive industry has been in crisis mode even before Corona. You maybe heard about the diesel crisis we had. We have a big transformation challenge from the old engines and driven engines up to e-mobility issues. So there's a big transformation phase. And the good thing is that the German automotive industry is very crisis-proofed. So if I talk to managers coming from automotive, they say, well, it will affect us hard, but we will be stronger than before. And this is maybe a promising sign. And we do not only see clients that are heavily affected by Corona, we see also clients that really take profit out of this crisis. So there are some industries who are really profiting from the crisis. For example, if you think about technology companies, if you think about communication companies, if we think about companies dealing with IT security, business continuity management and things like that, online shops, also logistics, they are really having good business and they keeping alive parts of the industry. And I also hear many companies who take this crisis also as a chance to work on new services, to work on new procedures. I think all of us, we have done so many video conferences every day that we have done in weeks before the crisis. So it changes our lives, it changes our business world, but I think it also gives us a lot of chances that we need to follow and need to take on. And it will be very interesting to learn today from the participants how they deal with the crisis, what they take out of the crisis, and how they cope with the crisis. So to use our Chancellor's word, we'll make it. She went wrong with that one time, but we are sure that we will come over this crisis and maybe even stronger than before. And I'm really looking forward to have a very fruitful discussion tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Before giving the floor to Massimo, I just want to invite our attendees to use the Q&A, the Q&A chat. And please feel free to send your questions in order to have a discussion together with our speakers. We are going to collect them, and at the end of this webinar, we are trying to answer to your questions. So Massimo, please. Your microphone.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Emanuela. Thanks to everybody to be here. I try to follow the trend that already David defined for Germany. And I start from the situation of the executive search in Italy. Of course, I speak of our direct experience. So I cannot give you an overview of all the market, but I want to give you an advice that is based on real figures and real activity we are doing now. I have to say that the crisis arrived in a very good period. We had a fantastic trend till the end of March, and the situation of the Italian market was really very interesting. I have to say that we work mainly with medium, large size company with a strong focus very often in export. So at the beginning of this year, we had the possibility to see a very good positive trend. May was the turnaround month. In May, we had a significant impact of the lockdown, and we have a few new contracts, but on the other side, as already said David, the company will continue to the old contract, to the project, so we don't have a real stop, but we have a slowdown in new project. Now, at the end of May, we start to see positive signals. And this, I think, is a positive news for us. The company is starting more and more to come back and to start to make new program and new project. I think that the main threat in this situation is the candidate attitude. Something's changed. I think maybe is a rear view mirror approach, but a lot of people now has a lot of fear. is much more complicated to have people committed for new project, even at a very high level. So it's a situation that we already seen in the past in the crisis periods, but today I think is stronger than ever. So a lot of people is, let me say, in a situation in which they are not able to understand what is happening in the future. And of course, as usual in this kind of situation, they try to manage the stability despite the projects. This is a problem, but it's also an opportunity from my point of view, because this situation obliges everybody, companies and executive search firm, to have a more deep attention in the process, to be more effective in communicate their projects, to have a better storytelling, and of course to build up a more solid communication to the market. So it's a problem, but we have to, and I think we have to manage this situation also for the next future. What happened on the side of the customers? The situation is more or less the same already explained by David. Now, in an average of the industrial company, I think the production is no more than 50–70% of the full activity. I'm speaking mainly of industrial sector. Of course, there are business like logistics or business like food sector that are completely different. But if we look to the main sectors, industrial sectors, the situation is no more than 70%. The most interesting issue, I think, in this speaking and discussing with our customer, that is something is changing in the, let me say, need to work for a more broader situation. Let me say that the entrepreneur, the managers at top level is starting to think that in Italy we cannot survive alone. It's not longer possible to play the game alone. And more we can see that the people is starting to think that industry is not separate from the country. It is more and more necessary to try to imagine that the industry will be the real machine to move forward the country from this situation. A lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of top managers I met in this time is thinking, let me say something like a new renaissance for the country. Is thinking that it's not possible to do this without to think to all the stakeholders. It's not possible to do this putting together their capabilities. It's something new. You know, Italy is a country in which we think that the most important thing is survive. And if you survive and the guy close to you is dying, okay, it's a problem for him. Now the situation, I think, is changing, and a lot of people is working a different way. I also have the feeling that for Italy, we are facing a very important opportunity. It's the first time after maybe 15 years that the fiscal compact will not work anymore. A lot of investments can be done. Of course, we have a complicated situation in terms of politics. We don't know how the situation will be managed by our government, but I think we have all the capability to benefit of investments, and on the other side, also for the investment of the other country are putting on the table. I'm thinking about Germany, but also USA, Far East. So the entrepreneur in Italy is looking to the opportunity to make the things more together and try to go forward. The main difference for Germany, I think that they are still on the track. David said we have already the planning for the next future. In Italy, the situation is more complicated and the risks are higher. But I feel for the first time from a long time that we have a number of company, a number of people that starting to think together. Also, the industrial organization is in a new wave, and everybody is looking to try to get a better situation. So a complicated situation, but with 2 or 3 trends already taken by the company, and some threats that can be handled, but the game is not over.
Thank you, Massimo, also for the suggestion about new renaissance. I think that each of our hearts is biting about this very romantic, let me say, picture. So going to Eliomaria, when we had the opportunity to meet each other, we try to focus on how to speak about new strategies, and for sure Eliomaria gave me a very interesting suggestion about the importance of the bilateral relations. So please, Elio, give us your point of view. I'm very interested about.
Well, first of all, thanks a lot for the invitation. Good evening, everybody. Buonasera, guten Abend, so that I can be a bit bilateral also with the greetings. But thanks a lot for these introductions. It gave me a bit of things to talk about. So I would like to start with my experience with this situation. First of all, because as you mentioned, I am 30 years old, but I spent half of my life abroad. So since I am 16, I basically spent my whole life traveling from one point to another. For me, the model was simply, I have a home, which is here where I am right now, where my family is, Sondrio in Italy. But for the rest, it was a matter of working everywhere. And it was quite simple. I could just jump on a plane. I was never sleeping in the same bed for 2 nights. That was my rule, especially in the last 5 years. In the last 5 years, I've been working for the Italian Chamber of Commerce for Germany, where I am the managing director. And this job is a particular job because it deals a lot with supporting companies working between Italy and Germany. And the Chamber of Commerce is abroad are bilateral association. So basically, we are both an institution and a private association. We work both with institutions and with companies. So this job basically pushed me to the limits of the traveling schedule. But I want to focus on the last week before going into lockdown, because I was in Brussels at the European Parliament the day where I physically saw the Abgeordnete, the Parlamentaria, leaving the Parliament, rushing to the airport. And then I also had to move back to Frankfurt, where I live. And then we went into this sort of light lockdown, and everything became quite complicated because we are 30 people in 3 offices in Germany. I was visiting the offices all the time, and suddenly we had to switch to home office. Well, home office, yeah, we tried to mock the home office system because it was impossible, and we saw it from the beginning that it's impossible to work in home office with kids at home. It was impossible to talk to other people in home office because of all of the things they had to do. And then suddenly we started to have news, especially me, from our relatives that got sick. So then we found ourselves that I remember thinking in that week, okay, I grew up with the idea that I was only 1 hour away flying from home. And now I find myself in a situation where I cannot go back home. So I am very limited. So this posed a lot of challenges on our personal side and also on the company side, because we work in an environment where we do all of our B2Bs, meetings, and so on, related to fairs, related to congresses, related to seminars, and so on and so on. And from one day to another, not only we had to cancel everything, but we could not plan anything in advance.
And Elio, maybe do you see any important difference in how to deal with this change, this crisis from the Italian side and from the German side, or maybe both sides are facing in a similar way this moment? And maybe if there are some best practices that from your side, maybe with a cross-fertilization approach, would you like to suggest to our attention?
And that is quite the interesting thing. So we discovered as Chamber of Commerce that the home office way of working was at the same stage in Italy and in Germany. So we noticed no difference in terms of how prepared the people were to go on this challenge. And the same thing applies to all of the possible conferences and so on. I mean, we switched immediately, both in Italy and Germany, to this digital way of doing conferences. For example, Zoom became, or whatever, all the other platforms became very, very used. But at the same time, no business model is ready for this kind of challenge. One of the things that we keep on saying is like, we are sharing a lot of knowledge in this period of time, but this knowledge, we are not able anymore to gain any profit out of this knowledge, because it seems like knowledge with digitalization is free. And no, what I can talk is about how the social system worked in this period of time. A big difference, for example, that we noticed was, for example, in the school system. And I see this from the perspective of the entrepreneur side. So I saw that the people in Italy had a lot more support from the schools. They were immediately ready. The school, or many schools in Italy were immediately ready to give lessons online. So the kids were at least for a part of the day busy doing lessons. In Germany, for example, that didn't happen in most of the places. So, but to be honest, at the end of the day, I must say the digitalization worked more or less in the same way across the countries. I just wanted to touch base on one point that was said by Massimo before leaving the word to the other speakers, and then maybe I can come back later on. The concept of working together. This has been the job of the Chamber of Commerce since the beginning. We always try to put people together and to do projects across the industries so that the suppliers and the buyers could meet each other and so on and so forth. And it's true, 2019 was a great year for many industries, for us as well. We reached also a very interesting level of operations. 2020 was looking also good, especially because, as you said, Germany had launched an investment plan, especially on infrastructure, that was looking very appealing also to the Italian companies, and we were ready to help. In this sense, I was going to Brussels very often, and I was following the discussion about the European budget, the Green Deal, and all of these topics that, by the way, find many Italian companies ready for the challenge. The topic, I hope, is still there. What I must say, and I look at the side of the institutions, everything right now stopped. It's very challenging right now, especially with the loss of taxes, income, and so on, to plan also at the institutional level. I came back to Italy and trying to help some of the region in order to make a plan, but at the moment it's everything very uncertain. So what I hope is that soon they will find solutions in this sense, because otherwise in this period of time, the challenge is really to plan ahead. Maybe company-wise, it's a bit easier, especially for those sectors that are not influenced by the coronavirus, but for these institutions, it is a challenge.
Okay, thank you, Eliomaria. Maybe let's try to look for some solutions, not solutions for everything and for everyone. So don't be afraid, Paolo and Juergen, about how to answer to this difficult question. But maybe we could start to have our conversation about your feeling and your point of view. Well, I would like to share with you your experiences and your strategies. How do you deal with this crisis inside your companies, inside your also communities, and how do you try to go through and out of this crisis? So which type of strategies or which are the most important resources from your point of view?
Can I start?
Yes,
This is Pierpaolo. Good evening. But let me comment first what Dave and Massimo said. I really believe that we will probably be stronger in the future compared to what we are today. But the ones that we survive will be stronger. And the ones that we survive probably, like Massimo said, will be the ones that we join the forces. So I really see these two things, to become stronger and join forces. For me, this is the receipt of what could be, let me say, a strategy. But coming back to your question, what we did during the coronavirus, no, COVID-19. So really, what we did as a company was really to do really basic things at the beginning. So first of all, we needed to take care about our people, provide a safe environment, because without our people, we cannot run the business. And then we need really to focus on some of the key areas in order to have business continuity. So you need to give priority. You cannot do everything. You really need to select what is mandatory. And then, because we are currently still in the coronavirus, I know that now there are a lot of opening, but we are still inside the coronavirus. You need also to provide, and this was not easy, some psychological support to our people. Because the people were locked in this coronavirus mindset. 3 months of coronavirus really changed also the behavior of the people that were at home in smart work. I like the smart work, but the smart work is something that lasts 2-3 days, then you change, rotate. The smart is not to stay at home for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. This is really influencing also the behavior of the people, and is changing the way in which we are approaching also our relationship between colleagues, but also with the business. So this was something where we worked a lot with communication, and we tried to put the people in a good mood. Let me call it this way. But then I believe, and like Eliomaria said, myself and my manager were used really to fly every day around the world, in Europe, in US, in Asia, in order to manage the business. At a certain point, we completely stopped at this, and this was our normal way of running the business, so to be in contact with the customer, with our plans and this kind of stuff. This was a big challenge to stop, but provided us an incredible opportunity, and the incredible opportunity was to stop and start thinking about strategy. And we typically work on strategy, but when you are really obliged to think that the boundary conditions are changing completely, because the coronavirus is really changing the boundary condition of yourself, of your environment, of your customer, of your people, then you need really to think that probably you need to develop a different strategy. And the strategy was very simple. Let me say simple. It was not simple. But first of all, you need to preserve the cash, because you need the cash. And so you need to focus on the cash, because without cash, you cannot do anything. You cannot do investment. You cannot even continue the current business. But preserving the cash was linked completely to a strategy of assessing and evaluating within the new environment what could be really the opportunities. So what we did was a strategy that was preserving from one side the cash and from the other side assessing and forecasting the opportunities. And in such an environment, there are several opportunities. And this was for what I consider the strength of my team and of my company, really to run the current business, preserve the cash, and then trying to forecast what could be the opportunities that we can have. And I can just give you some example of opportunities, especially in the automotive world, because if you look in the next 3 years, probably in Germany, Europe, let me say Europe, we'll have a reduction of volumes that are in the range of 38%. So the average volume in 3 years will be 38%, 35% of a reduction. Now it's much higher. In the next 2 years, we'll go up, but overall 38%. You can imagine the overcapacity that we have in the plants. Okay, when we say join forces, we can do 2 things. Join forces in manufacturing, so we can collect all the volumes together and try to serve the customer with just one plant, trying really to find agreements. And this is something, it's a strategy that you can do not only in the automotive, you can do in several different industries. But the second is really to think about how you can join forces in the innovation, in the new products, because today everybody has the same issue. They don't have cash, they don't have money to invest, but they have know-how. And so if you look to one strategy that really was playing a lot for me, was really to be in contact even with our competitors and say, you have this, I have that, you don't have the cash, or you have limited cash, you don't want to make investment, let's put things together. So this was really the mindset change that I saw during the coronavirus. And also another thing that was really important during this coronavirus time frame is to keep the customer, to continue to keep the contact with the customers. And it was really amazing because what happened during the coronavirus is that the people, the manager, strange, had a lot of time at home because also the manager were at home. And they were also very confused because this also, the confusion was there. I was also confused, everybody was confused. And also to make yourself available to talk with someone else that is in another industry, in another company, is your competitor, is your supplier, and to share your experience. Share the strategy, think about the opportunities. This was something that was unique during this time frame. I could speak much easier with a lot of managers and CEOs during this time frame than in the past. Because in the past, everybody was flying around, was trying to manage their own business. They were not thinking so much about putting together forces. This is something that happened during the coronavirus, but also with the new customers. Because also the new customers were more available, at least to listen to you, that was completely new to them. So I see a tremendous change, but a tremendous opportunity. This is really what I try to do during this time frame, to develop a strategy and to update the current business plan, trying to approach it in the way that I just described.
Thank you, Paolo, for your inputs. I think that it could be really interesting to see also from the point of view of Juergen as a sales director. Paolo was saying about being together with the competitors in order to go forward and go through the crisis, maybe new opportunities. Do you see that it is possible from your side? And please feel free to speak about your strategies in Vinolit and how do you try to succeed in this moment?
Yes, perfect. Also, thank you for inviting me, and buonasera and good evening, guten Abend. Maybe start with a personal experience, how we saw the crisis developing. And we've got our headquarters in the US. but we also have a production site in China. So the first discussions we had, apart from the news on the media, was how is the situation of our plant 1.5 hours west of Shanghai. And we were happy that we don't had any infected people. We were happy that we could secure masks for the people, that the production was down for a couple of weeks and then continued, but it seemed to be very far away. That was January. Then we had discussions with our headquarters, how does the situation in Europe develop? And one of the first things was, yeah, hardly any impact. China is far away. We had at that time one death in Europe. And I remember well when we explained, yeah, that was a pretty old visitor from China who died in the Netherlands or so. So it seemed to be very far away, and we were not too much concerned, I have to admit. And then it changed, that the virus came over, that we saw the crude oil prices developing, going down sharply. So we felt more and more, became more and more aware that there will be a tremendous impact on the overall economy, because crude oil is a pretty good indicator for that. And then the first wave from the discussion with our customers was that they asked us and provide many certificates that we don't get raw materials from China, that we have pandemic plans in place, that we can continue our operations, and what do we do and are we secure? And at that time, nobody had in mind that we will really see very quickly a sharp drop in demand. So the customers were concerned that we could continue our production in order allowing them to continue production, but this huge decrease in demand was not foreseen at all. So our strategies, how we started, and it was not more, we Germans of course like to plan in advance and to build long-term strategies from the positioning point of view. It was rather the emerging strategies which we developed. So customers were afraid that we could not supply. We were afraid that we could not supply. So everything which was necessary in order to safeguard production was put in place. Safety first, that were the first things. The major first case in Germany was a plant or company not far away from Munich, Webasto, automotive supplier. They had the first cases imported from their Chinese operations, and they had to close down production. And that was really the worst case for our scenario. Continuous chemical plants, if you need to run them down, you have a huge impact. So security was the first. We were very quick. If people had contact with people which were affected or were suspect of being affected, we sent them home quickly. In the plants as well as in our headquarters in Ismaning, we implemented IT solutions and continue operations. That was really the first wave that we said, we need to continue production. Then it was during the course of March, we realized that order books were still full, but we got many cancellations. So the question was, how can we cope with that? How will demand look like the next month and the forthcoming month? And we could not build on any experience. Of course, there was the crisis 2008, 2009, where demand went down sharply, but we could not make use of any patterns we had in the past. So I could not tell my management whether I expect a sales volume dropping 10, 20, 30, or even 50% the next month. So there was a lot of uncertainty, and that the next step, part of our emerging strategy, is to get even closer to the customers without being able visiting them. So since we did not have any real idea how demand would develop, we said we need to call our main customers day by day, and the sales force was very happy with that at the beginning, you can imagine, to ask our customers about their plans, how they will run their production. We did not ask questions how their demand would develop because they couldn't tell us either, but we could see in a time frame of 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks what their production plans are. Do they have to close production? That was mainly the case in Italy. We've got many customers in northern Italy, but also France was infected heavily. And with that frame, we got an impression how much of the capacity of our customers will be idled, and hence how the demand will be for our products. And I can tell you, we had this daily sales calls where we collected this data, and it was worse every day. So we started with, in the specialty resin, -20, -30%. At the end, we had April -55%. So it was worse every day. And here it was a very big challenge for the management. At the one hand, coping with demand and how can we preserve our cash. On the other hand, keep people motivated, calling the customers every day in order to collect more and more bad news. So by now, the situation has improved, but staying close with the customers, interacting with them closely, that was very important. And then the last most important step was to manage cost. And receivables, of course, are a topic to preserve cash, but how we can manage costs. So we also introduced short-time work, run production units, not 7/24, but separated it, running 2 weeks production, 2 weeks stop in order to save costs. But that's only a very minor point since we are very fixed cost intensive industry. And then the next step was when we realized how difficult the situation is with our main European customers, a lot of certainty included as well, that we had to develop other options. In terms of export business, selling more to China, selling more to India, where we also had lockdowns. But that was the major strategy then to find opportunities at very low margin business, but to keep our plants running. And this is still the case. Keep the sales force and the workforce motivated, healthy. So my wife works for a German bank, and if I compare our measures with their measures, it's really ridiculous what they do. So we are still in the home office. People have to wear masks for the people who are being in the office, disinfection of your material, no meetings, only virtual meetings. So the full mindset was put in place to keep people healthy and not to let the virus spread around the company. And for the time being, we were pretty successful. We only had 6 confirmed cases with 1,500 people in Germany, and all of them recovered, and nobody got infected during work. So that's something we are really proud. Everybody got infected while skiing in Austria, for instance, but we were able to prevent a spread of the virus within the company.
Thank you, Juergen. While listening to all of you, I understand that there are some topics that all of you underlined, the importance of being together with the people, encouraging them in continuing pursuing the goals, the company goals, but also customer centricity, the importance of relationship, and trying to face this crisis as an opportunity. I would like to ask you about the impact that maybe you see on your business models. Some of you spoke about digitalization. All of you have spoken about the importance of IT solutions and the impact in our daily activities, Zoom, but I read some minutes ago a question from our attendees, also the importance that those tools are having on our daily activities. How do you think that some processes from digitalization and other trends inside your business could go on, and maybe which kind of impact do you see also on the skills that you look for your people? Maybe do you need to strengthen their skills? Skills will change, or what do you think about these concerns?
I can comment on this question. I believe that again was a big challenge because to stay at home, this was really providing to all our employees and also to ourselves a completely different environment, no? Because again, we can run the meeting, we need to use video conference or teleconference. That was changing, but again, this was also a way to teach the people to use more some of the technology that they had available and that in the past they were not using. Also, this was also another learning that we got because then we developed new processes. And for example, the meetings that we were running before were much longer than the meetings that we are currently running by video conference or teleconference. But this is simply because you cannot keep people for 1 hour in a teleconference or video conference. You need also to plan much better your time across the day. Because, for example, for me, it's very easy to go out of this door and call my colleagues on the other side and have a meeting with him. If I need to arrange a call conference or video conference, it's a little bit more complicated because I need to schedule it by computer with my secretary and this stuff. And this is very dull for all the people. So this kind of new environment is starting really to add to us the possibility to create, for sure, new processes, but also to focus a little bit more on the elimination of the bureaucracy that we have in our company. In fact, one of the, let me say, the activities that we are running also for cash preservation, that at the end was improve the efficiency of your organization, was really to focus on all these processes. For example, also we developed a new PLM to be used for our company, for our manufacturing, for our system, that was really based on the observation that we could be much more efficient if we change completely the way in which we are working. Another also idea that we developed was, and this is valid also when the coronavirus will end, and I hope it will end, that we don't need so much offices inside. So this is also a cost of maintenance or renting and this kind of stuff. And in fact, there is a decision in my company that independent by the coronavirus, we will have anyway people that we continue to work with a certain turnover in smart work outside the company with a much higher rate that we had in the past. In the past, we had a certain rate of smart work because I can tell you that in Torino, we are probably, in Italy, we are among the first to use smart work. But the rate of smart work was a little bit not so high. Now, instead, we will really encourage to have a certain level of smart work, and so that this will allow us to work very differently. And also, we are providing to our employees new tools that will allow to manage this smart work and also the activity in the company in a much more efficient way. So at the end, again, we were assessing that by working this way, we can save around, that is a huge amount, seems small, but it's a huge amount, 5% of the overall cost. And 5% of the overall cost for me is really a huge number because we are applying this cross-functionally and also across sites. So this is a huge. And this was really forced by the fact that coronavirus put a challenge in the overall, let me say, organization. And also another thing that also changed and am changing is the organization itself. So, in fact, it's interesting because you are changing the tools, but you are also changing the organization in order to be capable to be efficient in the way in which you are using the tools.
And what about the cultural approach, Paolo? Because people are not so ready as tools, and we know that change is a very difficult, a long path to go through.
It's true also because I also learned to use some of the tools and to be used with all this mess. Even if I'm an electronic engineer and I love, let me say, software and electronics. But I believe that the people were much more, let me say, I can just make a joke, but the people that were at home had the children, they were teaching, and it's not a joke, it's reality, they were teaching them to use some of the tools. So I mean, at the end was faster than I was expecting to use the tool. The big change that I see is instead, is not really in the use of the tool, but is in the mindset of the people to approach the new, let me say, environment in a very different way. So to be adapted of this level of flexibility that now is really required. We as a company, to survive, we needed to have a flexibility, but now the flexibility must be much higher, because like we were discussing before with the other guests, the customer needed to be approached in a different way. It's true that we continue to fly around, but probably less than today. Also because we discovered that probably some of the customers we can also approach by video conference with a much higher rate than in the past. Again, the one-to-one and the face-to-face meeting will be always needed, but maybe we can really decrease them a little bit. And you need to be used. And also the way in which you speak in a video conference is different from speaking when you have a person really in front of you. These are all learnings that we are trying to bring now. And so the training of the people will be also something that we need during the next year, not in the next weeks, in the next year, in order really to create the new processes, teach them how to approach, to be a little bit more flexible, also to be ready for changes that are not today for a customer. And I just make an example. We, and not only we here in Italy, but also in Germany with all my colleagues and friends that I have, we are planning for the second wave of coronavirus. We are planning because we know that this can happen, and maybe and probably will happen in the autumn, in the fall. And this will have an impact that will be even higher than the impact that we had today. And so we need really to be ready. The fact that now we are planning now with our customers, with our supplier, is something that in the past we could not play because it was not possible, was not expected. And it's really changing completely the way in which we are now approaching also the future. And in fact, this is another learning. Now we are planning today for something that we expect to happen, even if we don't know if it will happen, in a very total different way and with a much stronger connection, if you want. And this is the way in which we are learning, because everybody's learning now.
Yeah. Thank you, Paolo. I would like to continue with the questions coming from our attendees, because they are very input. We receive a lot of input from their side. Juergen, one of our attendees asked us about this sentiment of cooperation. A cooperation that looks for innovation and creativity in decision processes more than competition. Maybe it's a sentiment that from the side of companies we already felt, but Vincent asked us if from our opinion we consider that the European economies are ready to face this new paradigm. What do you think about?
Unfortunately, I'm not sure about. Maybe Corona helps to get Europe on track again. It was breaking down before, but when I see the political discussion, it's pretty far away whether the Corona activities or actions shall be funded by Euro bonds, for instance, or not. So I'm not pretty sure that the European countries are getting closer by that crisis, apart from human actions, where the support, I think, is well established. I'm not sure how this will be on a simply economic level. If I put it down a bit more to detail, in our industry, old traditional industry, severe production, you have structurally overcapacities in Europe, not a high degree of innovation. And here I can't see that neither an increased level of cooperation, neither with the customers. because overcapacity is there. The first questions we received after we told them that production is sure, whether they could get longer payment terms or price reduction, so on. So that was not an increased level of cooperative behavior. And among the industry, high exit hurdles, old industry, very severe antitrust behavior, so that that there's not a lot of cooperation. So everybody hopes to survive on its own. Medium term, maybe more merchant acquisition activities will take place, because if demand remains on a much lower level, overcapacity will be even higher, and there needs to be something done. But not in a way, from my point of view, that people in that crisis feel that they have to cooperate more closely. This is in our old industry, at least not visible to me yet.
And Juergen, what do you expect from your managers after or through these crises? Do you expect the same things, the same skills, the same approach, or do you think about this pandemic also as an opportunity to develop managerial skills inside your companies, or maybe also from your customer side? What do you expect?
My superiors, my boss is doing pretty well, so I always relate to myself, and here the observations are much closer. I think it's a big challenge. You have more pressure business-wise, but the workload for the people is much higher, the depressed situation, so it's much more challenging to lead the team on the one hand, to move them to the direction where they should, they could motivate them to sell more, to call the customer maybe even twice a day if the order is not in yet. But on the other hand, having, from my point of view, a more relaxed, more approach to forgive more mistakes, which can happen much more because people are under pressure, and to find the right balance here. You mentioned also the topic culture. And I think with all these advantages we have from remote working and with the IT tools, we see that the lifeblood of the corporation, the social ties, that these are much more difficult to manage. One example is with our entire sales force, we've got quarterly meetings here in Europe, and one time of the year we have a barbecue session. And David will know the place. It's at the riverbanks of the River Isar, and it started with a few people who paid their beer and their steaks on their own, and then we made a corporate venue because it became bigger and bigger. And this is the first time, not after World War II, but maybe for 10 years, that we can't do that anymore. And everybody says, even we can't do our barbecue. What we try to do now is to make our video conference call, which we have in place, and we send out 2 bottles of beer each to all our salespeople in Europe, and we try to continue the sales meeting for another 30 minutes in the evening and sharing a beer together. So we try to have some normal chat, because that's really missing. And Paolo said the meetings are much shorter. And the meetings are also much shorter because you have much of this warm-up phase, where you are 5 minutes in advance in a meeting, talk to your colleague, ask about the children and so on. So we are in the meeting, go to the topic. It's the pre-German way I stress, but a lot of things, the working around the social ties, this is missing, and that will be one of the challenges we will see in the future.
Juergen, I read a funny input from one of our attendees, Roberto, that is telling us about the pragmatism of the new generations, because his daughter is dealing with lessons by Zoom, and they are very shorter lessons. And so Roberto was asking to his daughter, but everything okay? Did you study? And his daughter told him, well, Daddy, we are pragmatic. The teacher cut off the conversation if we go on without any purpose. So we hope that new generations could be also new good leaders. Anyway, I would like to come back to Eliomaria. You are the youngest among us, so we could say you are also you could speak from the new generation, and I would like to ask you, speaking about new normal, maybe in 2-3 words, what do you feel as a new normal? And from your side, dealing in this period with your companies from the Italian and from the German side, which are their willingness about new normal investments, technologies? What is your point of view about new normal from your side and your company's side?
It's an interesting question. So I was listening to the previous two speakers, and what came into my mind is this, that what happened with this crisis was actually that we arrived to a point where there was the feeling of there was a sense of urgency. And for those who like change management, the sense of urgency is at the basis of innovation. The discussion about the tools. For me, I worked both in multinational companies. Now the institution is something a bit different, but there is a problem that I see with these new tools like Zoom. I'm communicating something to you, but it's very difficult in this setting that I can make a brainstorming with you. And the problem of innovation is that innovation lies in the details. You are talking to me about your children, but you are relating it to your work-life balance and so on and so forth. And the clicks is in between those two different things. And this is not happening at all. And at least at the moment with this kind of tools. And I want to see how a company can make a long-term strategy meeting by not having the side rumor. There is no way. I mean, I sat in hundreds of board meetings, and yeah, we can discuss about the PowerPoint and see the growth level of the company, the sales drop, and so on and so forth. But that's only a part of the thing. So I think this whole thing is very challenging for the manager himself, because it cannot look into these details. We have to find a way of looking into the details. I mean, I was talking before about doing conferences or B2B meetings. I mean, it's very important to look in the eyes of my supplier or of the person who buys from me. Because I have to assess somehow if the person is reliable. I mean, there is a lot of nonverbal communication that I do not see that in Zoom. I'm sorry. I mean,
I know what you mean. As you know, I am a headhunter, and I have to select people also by Zoom.
So coming back to your question, the new normal. The new normal can only be a mix of these two things. And the new normal has to take into account from the point of view of the manager. I think it has to take into account that the manager has to be still flexible and has to still go around. Do we have to go through a period where the manager has having some security topics, issues, and so on? We can all do that. I mean, if we see in the history of the humankind, there has been a lot of viruses around. So one day this virus will finish. Now, the thing, coming back to change management, okay, from one day to another, we discovered that we can do some part of the business with these tools. Great, let's apply them. But I go back to my experience in the Chamber of Commerce. I arrived to the Chamber of Commerce and we were still using the fax. So, I mean, I spent the last 5 years into trying to have a digital communication, trying to have a CRM, never seen, never done, trying to have a controlling tools. Controlling tools are essentials, and so on and so forth. I mean, this is not something new. I mean, at the end of the day, the new normal can only be the usual thing as doing continuous improvement and not only having ideas, but to execute them. So now, do we have a sense of urgency because we are all in threat? Yes. Do we want to do it? This is up to us.
Thank you, Eliomaria. We have really few minutes more, so I kindly ask you to give me about a new normal, really short impressions. So please, Juergen or Paolo, your new normal from your side.
But the new normal for me is really to learn how to understand the people without having the same social distance that we had before. And this is why inside the company, with our customer, with our supplier, and in general with the people that are around us. And I fully agree with what Eliomaria said, that this will be really a combination of the two parts that he was describing. Also because, just one point, imagine what is changing even in the automotive world. Before, the shared economy and was one of the pillars of our mobility development. Today, the shared, because people have fear, is going down. And if you see the trend, for example, of car sharing, just to talk about sharing, you see that the trend of car sharing is going down. So there is also changing and impacting the use of the technology, because from one side we are empowering the use of IT system, but from the other side, technology like car sharing that was based on a lot of technology is going down. So it's interesting to see how this is affecting, and this is really the new situation which we will live probably.
Thank you, Paolo. Juergen, what is your new normal?
I think the new normal is one thing that we really feel stronger because we finally managed the virus. We had a lot of challenges, nothing which was seen to us in the recent history. And I agree that it will be a mixture of many things. As far as possible, we will increase social contact again in order to facilitate innovation, to feel the warmth of the people and being there. But then we will see a much quicker implementation of software tools which we had in the past. So no new inventions. I didn't know Zoom before. I know it pretty well now, all the other systems, and I think the new normal will be a combination of both worlds, being back to old patterns where you see the customer, but maybe not 3 times a year, but only once, maybe again with a dinner, where the social impact or the social content is much higher, and the day-to-day work will be much more efficient with tools which have been implemented now.
Thank you, Juergen. Massimo, David and Massimo, you're a new normal in 2 words.
Well, I just can agree with what Paolo and Juergen said. I think this crisis gave us a big chance to learn a little bit about ourselves. It forced us to stop the way we do business. It changed the way we do business. We started to question things we thought they were certain. And I think we heard a lot today about new ways of cooperation, such as joint forces, safer work, better work, new technology. And I agree with Eliomaria that the new world should be ideally a best combination of the old world and the new world. So I see that even we meet less today, we start to communicate more. Even we meet less, we start to listen more carefully. We start to really get a better sensitivity for other people. And this is maybe a big chance among all the economy chances we have, that we establish a new culture of cooperation. This is one of my hope for a new normal.
Massimo, your thoughts about
very quickly, because we are in very close to the end of this beautiful meeting. To be honest, is one of the most interesting webinar that I had the opportunity to be part in this very frequent period of discussions. From my side, I think I have to say that we are not at the end of the world. we are listening and we are learning a lot of new things, but at the end of the day, we will be able to manage and to organize our companies to take the best we learned today, but to put in action all the strategies that can give us the best of the past and all that we learned today. And I'm sure that it is part of the human behavior to learn from the crisis, to change, but to continue to be the same we are. And I'm sure that for all of us is a big opportunity to take this lesson, but to learn also don't have any more fear of this situation, because the fear is never a good friend when you have to take a decision. Now I think we have to go to decide that it's the end of the fair time, and is the moment to start to think to the future with a very positive look. I'm sure that we are very close to start again. So to learn, but to change, but to continue to be what we are.
Thank you, Massimo. I would like to share with you also my opinion about new normal. Listening to your testimonies and to your experiences, and I really say thank you, because it's been a generous meeting. I completely agree with you, Massimo. New normal from my side is something related to anti-fragility. That is a concept that I completely fall in love with. Anti-fragility represents more than just the agility of your organization. It's about evolution, and all of you have spoken about evolution. I do really believe, after having listened to your testimonies tonight, that in order to succeed in these, we as individuals and companies need deep roots and strong values in order to embrace maybe also our fears and to move towards the change with confidence. We already spoke about the difficulty of change as cultural impact and so on, tools, technologies. So it's a hard trip. I hope to continue in this hard and long trip, to not to be alone. Community and friends and the opportunity to share and to cooperate, I do really believe is one good way to go through. So hope that this moment tonight is just one of a lot of moments of having opportunity to share opportunities, to share experiences. So thank you so much for this opportunity to you, all our speakers, and to our attendees. I know that we haven't had the opportunity to answer to all the questions, but feel free to come to us also offline, and for sure we could further discuss these topics. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Buonasera. Auf Wiedersehen.
Arrivederci.
Thank you.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Grazie.